from his book, and it just kind of helps go through everything we're going to talk about this morning. So we started in Daniel chapter 2, and although Daniel chapter 2, it might not seem, sorry, you're fine. It might not seem like it's important, but it is massively important. And you think, well, what does a dream have to do with anything? Thank you, Alex. We started going over the dream, and if you remember last week, King Nebuchadnezzar comes in and he says, okay, all you wise men, I want you to tell me the dream and what it means, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill your family. Okay, so how many of y'all know what I dreamed last night? He says, it's gone from me. I don't know. That's impossible. And if you remember where we left off last week, they said, there's no man on earth that can do this. And then he says, there's no one that can show it before the king except the gods whose dwelling is not in the flesh. Now, even though Babylon was a pagan society, they had many gods for many different things, they still knew that gods did not dwell in the flesh. I find that interesting. So we pick up there. Jesus was made God in the flesh. Do you remember what Emmanuel means? God with us. God was made flesh. It worked. John 1:1. Does anybody remember what it says? John 1:1. God became flesh and he dwelt among us. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He became flesh. So God loved us so much, he sent his Son. God loved us so much, he's not going to leave us alone. He's going to give us the Holy Spirit. You know, God loved Israel so much, he was willing to live in a tent and be moved around before the temple was even built. He loves us so much, he sent his Son. Let's pick up in Daniel 12-14. For this cause the king was angry and very furious and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. You can't tell me my dream, so you're done. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain. Okay? And they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom. That is very important. Don't skip that part. It means he had tact. He didn't get mad and he didn't start raging at this. He answered wisely. To Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. Do you understand what that means? He's already on his way to go slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty? Why are you doing this so quickly from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house, and he made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. We kind of tend to think and put this all on Daniel. Was Daniel the only one praying? He's not. Counsel. Counsel is advice given especially as a result of consultation, wisdom, a moral rather than an intellectual quality. To be foolish is to be godless. You see the scriptures there. True wisdom is a gift from God to those who ask it. Is godly wisdom different than worldly wisdom? Definitely, because it's different when you have a biblical world view. Proverbs 2:6, for the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. What's greater than one man on his knees crying out to God? 4 men on their knees crying out to God. Daniel's not doing this alone. Have you ever been in a place in your life where you're like, me praying is not enough? The first person you are going to call is someone who you know for sure is going to knock on the doors of heaven for you. You all know who that is. You already have it in your mind. Because how often do you come across people and they say, oh, I'll pray for you? And do they really? Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes people just say that and they don't follow through. When you're in a crisis, are you going to call that person or the person you know is going to pray for you? It's going to be the person you know. Prayer circles are important. It's important that you surround yourself with people that are like-minded, biblically focused, who will join you in prayer. It didn't say Daniel went to anybody else. He went to these 3 men because he knew that they would pray too. Then the secret was revealed to who? Was it revealed to Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael? How many of them prayed? 4. Only 1 got the answer. Through that 1 that got the answer, did Daniel keep it to himself? He did not. All 4 prayed, 1 got the answer. And look what happens. So Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for his wisdom and might are his. It's prayers, then praise. Y'all have already done that this morning. Y'all did that when I took prayer requests. We had prayer. Y'all praised when you were given prayer requests. That's an important part, to realize God is at work. Now let me ask you this. Of all the times you've seen God at work in your life and you said, I know God had a hand in this. I know God had a hand in this. I know God had a hand in this. Can you imagine the times that you don't realize he worked things out for your good? I think we would be amazed at that. And he changes the times and the season. He removes kings and raises up kings. I'm going to pause right there. Because right now they're in a pagan society, and we went over this. Why in the world would God let his people go into a pagan land? God can use good kings. He can use wicked kings. He sets up kings for his plan and his purpose. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells within him. That's a huge statement right there. I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we ask of you. He didn't make it selfish. He didn't say, this is what I, me. If you remember when we were coming into the book of Daniel, you remember I was doing the intro? One of the things that I told you is it was a very narcissistic society. It's I, me. When it comes to when you're reading through, when they're fixing to go into captivity. And we went over Nebuchadnezzar. Do you remember Nebuchadnezzar? And he had to have like millions of bricks stamped with his name. It's all about him. Me, I. Daniel is the contrast to that in so many ways. Okay. I don't know why it does that, y'all. I'm sorry. What we ask of you, not I, we ask of you, for you have made known to us. Even though Daniel got the revelation of it, he's a collective because the 4 men, all of them prayed. Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me before the king, and I will tell the king the interpretation. Then Arioch quickly brought Daniel before the king and said thus to him, I have found a man in the captives of Judah, who will make known to the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name is Belteshazzar. All right, that's one of those names we went over the other week. You remember? That's linked to the pagan gods of Babylon. Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers cannot declare it to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. Only God can do that. One God, not all of these false and pagan gods. And he has made known. Daniel didn't take credit for it. He didn't say, oh, I can do this. I'll tell you the interpretation, but it's God who has made known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. That's a key word in there. What's going to happen in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while on your bed, what would come to pass after this. Keep in mind what he's saying here. And he who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be in the future. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but for our sakes who make known the interpretation to the king, that you may know the thoughts of your heart. He's like, it's not because I'm wiser. It's not because I'm smarter. God didn't reveal this to me because I'm special. He revealed it for the preservation of those who prayed. The interpretation. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you in its form was awesome. The image's head was of fine gold. If you look at your papers, you're going to see the head. It is of fine gold. Its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze or brass, depending on interpretation. Its legs of iron and feet partly of iron and clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on the feet of iron and clay and broke them into pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found, and the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. There's a lot of imagery here. So what Daniel saw as prophecy, this is huge now, we see as history. Daniel's looking this way. We're looking this way. Daniel could not name the kingdoms specifically. We can look back and name the kingdoms because we know history. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are the king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom of power, strength, and glory. Who gave him that position? Is he a good king or a wicked king? Wicked king. Even God put a wicked king into this position. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the fields and the birds of heaven, he has given them into your hand. Who gave the people into his hand? God. All right, it's not by accident. God allowed this to happen. And has made you ruler over them. You are this head of gold. Now we know that's Babylon for sure. All right, Babylon at this time is very rich. We already went over this. Very prosperous, very advanced for the time. They had the best education of the day. That is no mistake. Best education of the day, Daniel would have had it. If you remember when we went over Exodus, who had the best education of the day? Moses. He needed that just as much as he needed shepherd training. So first 40 years, He's in the best education system in Egypt. Second 40 years, he's learning how to tend ornery, stubborn sheep. And then the last 40 years, he's got to put it all together and use both of those. That's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that Daniel had the first 15 years of his life in Jerusalem, trained up in the ways of God. And now he's got the education of Babylon because he was trained for 3 years. We know that. He's going to use both of them. The thing that makes him amazing is that he was consistent all of his life, from the time he was 15 to the time he's an old man. And I just want us to remember when we were 15. Could we say we were consistent? Probably not. 15 is one of those hard years where your emotions are going everywhere. You're busy. You're trying to figure out what you want to do in life. That's not really consistent years. But here we have Daniel is. So we know Babylon is the head of fine gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And a fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, the kingdom will break into pieces and crush all the others. Now, this might not seem important, but it is incredibly important for 2 reasons. One reason is because every single one of these kingdoms will rule over the Holy Land. Every one. Babylon is going to be conquered. The Medes and the Persians, they're going to team up. So we say Medo-Persia. We combine those. So they're going to take Babylon. And then y'all know Alexander the Great of Greece. He's going to come and he's going to take the Medes and the Persians. And then who conquers Greece? Rome conquers Greece, and it's going to be through Rome, the Roman Empire. Who's going to be born? Jesus. All right? That's important chronology because all of these are going to rule over the Holy Land. The other thing that it's interesting to me is Daniel chapter 2, you get this vision of a statue. The same exact kingdoms are mentioned in Daniel chapter 7. And I know we're not there yet, and I'm going to repeat it when we get there. But Daniel chapter 2 is how we look at kingdoms. We look at it and say, oh, this one's rich and it's advanced. Oh, this is gold. We look at them based on, I guess you would say, how much they're worth. Today, we would say how technological advanced, possibly. We have so many kingdoms. I can sit out here and I can ask you, okay, name to me a rich country. Everybody's going to have probably a top 3. America's probably going to be in the top 3. And I say, okay, name to me a poor country. And you're going to be able to tell me. You judge it whether you realize it or not. Countries based on rich or poor. We do that. This is how we see kingdoms. In Daniel chapter 7, it describes these same kingdoms as beasts. That's how God sees kingdoms. We judge them on all kinds of things. Like I said, rich, technology, all sorts of things. God sees beasts. I can see that. I wonder what beast God would describe America as. I would think we are the most self-centered nation that there is. And not that there's not good things America was founded on. I saw an article, and it was the one about our state trying to get the 10 Commandments back in the classroom. All right, and it was just an article on it. These are the people who brought this bill. That's basically what it was. It wasn't that the article was agreeing with it or disagreeing with it. It was just saying, okay, these people have brought this, It was the comments under the article that disturb me. And I'm going to give you a snapshot of what I see. This isn't a Christian nation. How dare you put the 10 Commandments in a classroom? Why are you going to teach them to my children? My children aren't Christians, and I don't want them to have anything to do with it. Over and over. Now, I'll tell you, the Facebook page that put it out, it was one from Greenwood. This wasn't something national. This wasn't something in a liberal state. This is something from our state, a conservative state, and I would say from a conservative county, Greenwood. And you have all these people commenting on it. And I would think the people that are commenting on the Greenwood page are more than likely from Greenwood. Who follows the Greenwood page? You know, it's probably not going to be like a national thing where you're going to have everybody hop onto it. That disturbed me. That disturbed me because we have so many people. No, we're not a Christian nation. I'm sorry. Have you been to Washington and seen the scriptures that are engraved on these monuments and statues and everything? Just because you don't believe it doesn't make it not true. I would tell you this. If anybody has ever heard of this guy, his name is David Barton. I'm sure you probably know him, Alex. So smart. He's got great recall. He can tell you everything about how this country was founded, who founded it, what they believed and why they believed it, dates and everything is so detailed. His son's into it now too. He's got a website called Wall Builders, and I see more and more from him. Amazing presentation he does about our founding fathers and this nation being a Christian nation, if you wanted to look him up. 43 and 44. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they do not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in these days, these kings, the God of heaven, will set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. What kingdom's God going to set up that's never going to be destroyed? Babylon fell. The Medes and the Persians fell. Greece fell. Rome fell. All of them are going to fall. There's only one kingdom that's not going to be destroyed. That's God's kingdom. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break into pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, that it broke in pieces of iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. This dream is certain, and the interpretation is sure. It's not going to change, is what he's saying. You can't change it. How many times has men tried to change God's plan? Does it work? No. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, prostrate before Daniel, and commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him. The king answered Daniel and said, "Truly, your God is the God of gods." Well, that was wrong. He's at least acknowledging God, but he's not the God of gods. He is the one true God. And the Lord of kings, the revealer of secrets, since you could reveal the secret. Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him gifts, many great gifts, and made him the ruler over the whole province of Babylon and the chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the king's gate. This is the paper that I gave you. I'll let you look at that on your own because I wanted to get to this. This right here is interesting, and I could not put this in my book because of copyright, but I can show y'all today. All right, Nebuchadnezzar's prism. This is in the Istanbul Museum. What makes this amazing is who's mentioned on it. Okay, it's been interpreted. This is prism 7834. When Tommy and Kathy went to Turkey a few years ago, I was like, if y'all go to the Istanbul Museum, I need you to get me a picture Unfortunately, they were not able to do that. So I'll tell y'all, if any of y'all go to the Eastonville Museum, let me know. I need a picture that I can use without copyright infringement. But it has the names of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego on it. All right, so Abednego was the secretary to the royal prince. Isn't that interesting? It literally tells their titles. All right, Hananiah, it does have a version of the Hebrew name, and I don't blame him. If you're going to write about me, I want my Hebrew name too. I don't want the pagan name. He's the chief of the royal merchants of the king. Now, Hananu, if you see the spelling, if you study like a linguist and etymology and all of that, this is considered like a Phoenician or Semite name equivalent to the Hebrew of Hananiah. That's why I put this on here. And then Mushallam Marduk or Meshach, it's like a contraction, like we have cannot, we put it to can't. His name is kind of like a contraction. He's the overseer of the slave girls. Adding to this, there are also two other names that are mentioned. Nebuchadnezzar had two, and I didn't put this on here because I didn't want to get lost in it. There are two names that are, I'm going to say like the people that he says to go do stuff. I don't even know what you call those. Yeah, his gophers. There's two of them mentioned in Scripture, and I can't pronounce their names. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. You would get the southern pronunciation. I cannot pronounce their names. But those two are mentioned along with these three together. That's what makes it fascinating. So if it was just one of these names, we're going to say, yeah, that's not Meshach, or that's not Abednego, or, we would say that. All three of these together with the other two names, there's 5 names mentioned in Scripture on here that are at the same time period. That's what makes this amazing. Does anybody have any questions? Alex, you want to add anything?
I just think it's very significant. There was a quote by, I think, a man named William F. Albright. He said, with every turn of the archaeologist's spade, another page of Scripture has been confirmed. Mm-hmm. And that's an example of it.
It is. And I wish they would put this kind of information in every history book there is. I mean, that's history. It's recorded history. Why can't we teach our children that? And I feel like when we're in school, we get a little bit of maybe Alexander the Great, unless you take like a focused history program, but just regular public education, high school level. You get a little bit of Alexander the Great. You might get a little bit of Rome. Do any of y'all remember reading about the Medes and the Persians, or even Babylon? We don't get that. And we don't get to see the full picture as it relates to the Bible. And I like how when you study, I'm always learning. I always want to learn, and I like digging. And when I find things like this, I get excited about it, and I want to share it because this builds my faith. This builds my faith. You come to me and you say, well, I don't need this. That's okay. Your children might. Your grandchildren might. If you ever talk to a skeptic, you might. Because you can say, hey, they're going to say, oh, well, the Bible's not true. There's a lot of things in the Bible that's true. There's evidences God leaves behind. All right, that's all I got. We'll pick up next week. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you, Ashley.